Hi, I'm Turk Strongman at Taranki Ramacharaka. Thank you for selecting this video on the Big Bad Wolf. Evil. Before continuing, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please go ahead and do so now. I believe it's in your own best interests. While you're at it, activate the notification bell feature. If by the end of this video you found that you liked it, please give it a thumb up. You can feel free to give it one anyway, even if you didn't like it. Share the joy of the channel with others, and with those humble requests having been humbly proposed, let's move forward to the Big Bad Wolf. Now, what's the purpose of this video? It's a follow-up or an addendum to a video that's been here on my channel for a while. It is called How to Have a Healthy Sense of Humor, Rare Vital Information. The thumbnail, in large letters, says the macrocosmic joke. All right, at timestamp 52 minutes 8 seconds. In that video, I used the phrase the Big Bad Wolf in the context of, remember the Big Bad Wolf stuff from earlier, some other video? By the way, this note is in a pinned comment under that How to Have a Healthy Sense of Humor video. About the Big Bad Wolf, okay? Well, I did have a video in which that phrase was used and explained what I mean by it. That was on a prior channel. That video in which I actually discussed what I'm calling the Big Bad Wolf is not here. Well, I just realized I better make a video with of that and put it here so that you can now know what I'm talking about in that other video. So that's what this is, the Big Bad Wolf. Here we go. Now, is there evil? Is there evil? Your perception of that depends upon where your conscious identity, your conscious sense of identity, is awake on a line connecting the two great poles of negativity and positivity in the cosmos. We don't have to become blinded to events. Just a moment. We don't become blinded to events, but we can see them more clearly and from a higher point of view, more toward that positive pole. The more we slide in that direction, the better the view and the less troubling it is. It's sort of like being a branch manager and walking around in the factory, pitching in and helping to run a machine. You remember what it was like to run that machine every day before your promotion to manager. You remember how it felt to run that machine day in and day out. And you see the other workers sweating it out now, and you hear them complaining, but you don't have that point of view yourself anymore. You can stand there and do the work without that problematic point of view. And you don't go home and feel all messed up over having done it again today. Your prior experience of it got you past it. Now you can experience it more for what it really is rather than for what your ego and its matrix of beliefs tells you it is. Which point of view is the more real and the superior one to have? It's like understanding that there is nowhere any part of you or of anything else can ever end up outside of the realm of universal mind. Another way to say that might be, you cannot escape from being in God's backyard. It's just another way to say the same kind of thing. But this does not mean that you should therefore indulge in addictions or anything like that. All right? It's like fully understanding that what with you being tied in intimately with universal being, there is absolutely nothing to fear. But there's still a reason for caution. From the point of view in the lower planes, yes, evil exists. But you don't have to therefore remain ensnared in those planes and tossed around by their events and points of view. Those will trap you as long as you indulge them. You can witness events and perceive them from a higher plane. You can view them as entertainment if it helps for a while. And you can feel, but feel from the root of all feeling. All feeling then increasingly transmutes into experience of the divine. That corresponds with witnessing from a higher plane. Likewise, your perceptions of events, however evil those events are, and the perceptions of people caught up solely in the appearances and in the labels attached to them, can be more clear, pure, real, and higher than theirs. There's no requirement that evil needs to be a part of it, unless you choose to engage in that level of discourse. It's similar to first, let's say, A, arguing that militaries and war are necessary, on the grounds that everybody else has militaries and has territoriality in mind, and have evil lurking within, and will eventually overrun non-militarized or weaker nations. But then B, yourself moving to the point of view that war is not necessary at all for any nation, that war is a sham, and that there really is no requirement for anybody to even think war. Okay? Now in that second, B, the so-called necessity of war is seen from a higher plane. Perception of inherent negativity in things yields more of the same, by way of the law of mental attraction and the principle of cause and effect. It becomes quite convincing. It becomes a war in itself. Now these last few points I've made here are potent, and they hit sensitive areas for some people. They hit on rather extreme ends of matters. They hit on themes as set out in religious dogmas that are embedded in our psyches and which have in fact served a purpose. They have served a purpose the same as getting familiar with the principle of cause and effect serves a purpose. Once we learn the lessons inherent in identifying outer and inner events with cause and effect, and learn to act in accordance with that principle, we can drop off the concern over it and rise above its pendulum swing, eventually no longer even concerned with the effect of not being so concerned. If you analyze these last few potent points, they are consistent with much else that I have laid out here on my channel. Getting a real grip on these points helps to come to easier terms with increasingly extreme circumstances in life. You may encounter some in your work. If you carry the consciousness that you have come face to face with evil, well, that can really mess with you. I've had dealings with so-called demonic forces, entities. If I consider that evil was messing with me, well, that's a haunting consideration. Messes with my head. It has a nasty bite. If, however, I truly do not consider that and just take the affairs for what they were, maybe demonic entities doing their little thing. It really has no impact on my welfare because I'm tied in with the source, and all of its power. Then the, so to speak, evilness part can't really mess with my head at all. I shrug it off, sanely, take caution not to invite that sort of thing, but to invite its opposite. In doing so, I deliberately and knowingly employ various laws and principles. I'm not perfect at it. I still have plenty of karma left from earlier lifetimes, which must still be worked out by way of the law of retribution, subordinate to the law of cause and effect. But slowly and surely evil plays a diminishing role in my perceptions, my circumstances, and my overall being, and sense of being well. Now, this point of view can really take the sting out of some things, the unnecessary, ultimately self-imposed sting. I'm the master of my experience if I do what is necessary to be so. In this particular life, I might not have initially self-imposed my notion of evil lurking around the corners, but I self-impose it if I allow the perception to remain and fester. True, there is a whole world out there. There is also a whole astral one. But what is more, much, much more, is that there is a whole higher mental plane to tune into. Doing so takes the bite out of crime, so to speak. Well, I feel burdened by the conditions of the world. It's not necessary to feel so burdened. No human being has the responsibility to feel that way. It's a discredit to one's true self. People caught up in the lower self often outrightly add to the problems of the world. They also feel the burden of the world. And it translates into anger, and it translates into fear. Other people feel a somewhat higher calling, so to speak, and desire to do something about the problems of the world. They want to serve humanity and make the world a better place. But they are so caught up in the problems and in the desired result of their desires and plans to make everything better that they feel the burden of the problems of the world. Still. And still feel anger and fear. Their anger and fear, in part, drives them to wanting to make a change. But the relevant fact here is that they are still caught up in the lower self. They are allowing the outer world to affect their sense of well-being. They are driven by a sense of ill-being. Their perceptions are filled with problems and with underlying notions directly involving the world's evils. Now, as such, they contribute. The social and psychological world will not be a better place until people become well inside. That involves not being burdened by the problems of the world. It involves not paying much attention to them. It involves getting above them. It involves perceiving and identifying with the higher planes of mind. Under the law, evolution heads all worlds in that direction. But we're not responsible for all of that. Assuming that we are is to mistake our individual lower or even higher selves to be the universal self. One by one, we must take responsibility for our share. That means consciously rising above into the higher mind, into the higher self, and thinking, feeling, and acting from there, due to duty, to the universal law, rather than due to a sense of fixing the world. Go about your tasks, your work tasks, but not due to concern over the causes in the world. Go about your tasks, but not for their effects in the world. With respect to a career, you have consciously selected it somehow for the planes of reasons that you have selected. You have given those reasons their due attention. You have willed your corresponding decision. Perhaps part of your reasons had to do with helping people who are in apparently terrible situations. But don't remain caught up in that thinking now. Further attention, perception, and thinking and inner response to terribleness is undue attention now, and will make you sense ill-being. That would discredit and vulgarize who or what you truly are. Knowing that you are not only allowed to, but also that it is part of your duty to, the law, to enter the higher mind point of view, and to identify with your higher self, and to think, emote, feel, and act with corresponding core control is instrumental and even prerequisite to actually doing so. Only then can true compassion and service to humanity occur. Otherwise, how can you be truly compassionate and of service when you're caught up in woe and its causes and effects? Well, you can't. The best you can be that way is helpful while eventually getting dragged down. And we see that happening all around us. Let me see if I had something else to add to that. Well, interestingly, you can gain in true individuality as you approach consciousness of identity with your individual true self. and its intimate, integral, interpenetrating relation with universal being. They are really of the same stuff. The only difference is in their degrees. There's really nothing to lose. There truly is everything real to gain. All right. That's what I was referring to. In the other video about healthy sense of humor, at timestamp 52 minutes 08 seconds, when I mentioned, I said something like, remember that other stuff about the big bad wolf? This was that other stuff. Now, did you like the video? Thumb up. Did you dislike it? Thumb up. Subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell feature, share the joy of the channel with others, and remember, you heard it right here on Tharan Ki Ramacaraka. I am Turk Strongman. Be well.